Charlie left me in the suburbs when I was sick and had a fever. Just to watch the sea with his first love. He spent 6 years teaching me to be independent. But he told his first love that she deserved to be loved by the whole world. So, I really don't need him anymore. Jane shouted excitedly on the phone, "Charlie, do you hear the sound of the waves?" Charlie's face changed drastically and he stepped on the brakes. "Jane, where are you?" Jane chuckled. "I was in a bad mood at first, but when I came to the beach, I felt the long-lost peace." "Charlie, the sea is so dark at night. I'm a little scared." But my feet felt solid when they dug into the sand. The sea water was so cold and I felt a little cold. "Cold? Then I'll take you to eat hot pot, okay? That's the one you said has delicious tripe." Charlie's voice was steady, but his hand holding the phone was shaking. Finally, he found Jane's flashing red dot in the positioning. He tried to turn the car around, but I held his hand. Only then did Charlie remember that I was in the car. Because of my obstruction, his face looked a little ugly, and his eyes were subconsciously fierce. I smiled helplessly and pressed the mute button on the call interface. "Let me get off first, I still need to go to the hospital." I had a fever of 38 degrees. At a friend's party, we left early just to send me to the hospital. But one phone call from Jane made Charlie forget about my existence. Charlie was in a dilemma. Amy, Jane I know what Charlie is trying to say. It's just that Jane's situation is more urgent. She needed him more. "I'm just sick with a fever, I'm not a child, can't I handle it myself?" Without waiting for him to finish his words, I nodded understandingly. "I understand, you go find her, I'll go to the hospital by myself." After saying that, I got out of the car. I watched the car stand there in silence for 5 seconds, then turn around and speed away. Jane is Charlie's first love. In order to woo her in college, Charlie, who was allergic to mangoes, ate a whole box of them. But in the end, Jane abandoned him for a better choice. This made Charlie fall into self-deprecation for a while. I did not redeem him. When I met him, he had already recovered from the pain of a broken heart. At that time, he was confident, mature, steady and restrained. He was my life mentor. He made me a better person. Just not in the way I would have liked. Jane suddenly appeared 2 years ago. The man she thought was a better choice not only cheated on her but also abused her. Jane is depressed, severely depressed. Charlie is her psychiatrist. He said he had let it go a long time ago, and now Jane is just a patient to him. That was true at first. Until Jane stops paying. Until Charlie said to her lovingly that night, "You deserve to be loved by the whole world." Today is Charlie's friend's birthday party. In order to have fun, he found a farm on the outskirts of the city. The environment is really good and the entertainment items are complete. It's just that the location was too remote, and after 10 minutes, still no one accepted the order on the taxi app. And I could hardly stand because of the fever. I squatted on the side of the road, hesitating whether to call 120. Suddenly a car drove over from a distance. "Amy? Why are you here?" I squinted to identify him and it seemed to be a childhood friend of Charlie. "Kevin?" He got out of the car and helped me up. "What happened to you?" "Where's Charlie?" I didn't want to tell anyone what Charlie had done. I just begged, "Can you take me to the hospital? I may not be able to hold on." I wasn't lying when I said I couldn't hold on. As soon as I got in the car, I felt dizzy and closed my eyes. In a daze, I heard Kevin calling Charlie. He said, "Even if you have something wrong, even if Jane is going to jump into the sea and commit suicide in the next second, just give us a call. Who among us can't take your wife to the hospital?" If I hadn't left at the last minute, she would have fainted on the side of the road and no one would have cared. Isn't she a child? She is certainly not a child. But have you forgotten that this is the suburbs? Can she conjure up a car? Charlie, you're such a fucking beast. Asshole. Although Charlie's behavior didn't have much impact on me. But when I heard someone standing up for me, I couldn't help but smile. Maybe because I was relaxed, I fell asleep in the second half. I woke up again in the middle of the night. There were no messages or missed calls from Charlie on the phone. Instead, Kevin sent me a text message. Kevin, have something to do and have to leave first. I have hired a nurse for you. Please let me know when you wake up." So I replied to him, "I'm awake, I'm fine, thank you." After thinking about it, I added, "I'll treat you to a meal when I have time." I left the next morning after finishing the infusion. I took a day off from work and went directly to my friend's law firm. I was received by my friend's subordinate, who handed me the divorce agreement. And he told me, "If you need to file a lawsuit, you can contact me at any time. I think it is not necessary." But he still nodded and said thank you. Charlie wasn't there when I got home. Judging from the furnishings in the house, he didn't come back that night. I didn't call him. I took out my suitcase and started packing. There are fewer and fewer things about me in this house. There are only 3 pairs of shoes left in the shoe cabinet, and the clothes in the closet are only from this season. I have already emptied the study. Last week, I moved all my computers and files to my new home. As for other daily necessities, rather than moving them away, which is time-consuming and laborious, a better place for them is to destroy them. I made 8 trips back and forth to throw away everything. I was waiting for Charlie in the living room with a suitcase upright. He arrived home around 6 o'clock. When he saw the suitcase, he was stunned. "Are you going on a business trip?" I said, "No, I'm moving out." "What's the meaning?" I took out the divorce agreement. "Let's get divorced." Charlie paused for a few seconds, then pushed me away in annoyance. "Come on, I haven't slept all night and I'm already tired." I tried to keep my tone calm. "No trouble, just take a look. If you are not satisfied with anything, we can discuss it." "Are you serious?" "Right." Charlie sneered. "Amy, are you threatening me? A mature adult shouldn't do such a thing. Divorce? Run away from home? You are not a child anymore." I have heard similar words too many times. At first I blamed myself, then I was angry, and now there is no wave of emotion. I insisted on handing him the divorce papers. "Take a look, and if there is no problem, sign at the end." "Amy, that's enough." Charlie growled. He said, "If you do this again, I will take it seriously." I looked at him in silence. Finally, he looked away fiercely. He took the divorce papers from me. Without even looking at it, he turned to the back and signed his name. He told me to get out fiercely. But I still reminded him, "See you at the Civil Affairs Bureau at 8 o'clock tomorrow morning." Charlie and I met through a blind date. At that time, I had just turned 20 and had not yet graduated from college. I went there for fun. I was shocked to see Charlie. I can't help but sigh, is the quality of today's blind date market so high? Charlie burst out laughing. We understand that neither of us meant that. So we exchanged a few pleasantries, exchanged phone numbers, and then parted. I called Charlie 3 months later. Because he is a psychiatrist. "Dr. Charlie, I would like to ask you, if I hear my toothbrush talking to me, what do you say it means?" Charlie said, "It means you need to see me." I went through a lot of tests and assessments that day, with Charlie leading the way. Later he said to me, "You are sick, you need to take medicine." "But I don't think I'm sick." Charlie chuckled, "It appears while you are eating." That was a time when I was very dependent on Charlie. He was very patient and gentle, and he smiled at me. He said, "It's okay, it's just a minor problem, I can cure it." It took him a year to heal me, and it took me half a year to pursue him. Then we fell in love and got married, and it has been 6 years now. We haven't even waited for the 7-year itch, but the song has come to an end and we have already parted ways. But fortunately, I have let it go. I took a photo of the divorce agreement and posted it on WeChat Moments. The first one to explode was my mother. Phone calls came one after another, messages came one after another. I took a quick glance at it and the words there sounded either mean or shameless. In order to avoid going to the hospital for a heart attack, I blocked her directly. The world is indeed quiet. The next second, Lily called. She is my best friend alive. He was also the first person to know that I was getting a divorce. She said, "I know you really want a divorce, but isn't it a little too early to celebrate now?" I smiled and said, "It's not a celebration, I'm sending it to Charlie." "What's the meaning?" "He might think I was sulking, and if I didn't push him, he wouldn't go to the Civil Affairs Bureau tomorrow. Charlie is 6 years older than me. My mother once said that a 6-year age gap between a boy and a girl is not good, as the zodiac signs are in conflict and are unlucky. But Charlie's conditions were so good that they directly defeated feudal superstitions and made my mother think that I had done good deeds in my previous life. Because of the 6-year age difference, Charlie always treats me like a child. When he is nice to me, it's like he is caring for a child. When he is mean to me, it's like scolding a child. But the phrase he always said was, "You are not a child anymore." My circle of friends worked. The next morning, when I arrived at the Civil Affairs Bureau, Charlie was already standing there. But he wasn't alone, Jane was there too. She looked at me with a helpless expression. I was shocked when I heard Charlie say that you were going to get a divorce. "Amy, you can't be so impulsive. If it's because of what happened the night before last, I apologize to you, okay? It's quite funny." She used a tone of coaxing a child, but the provocation in her eyes could not be concealed. I curled the corners of my mouth, then you tell me. What? Apologize. Don't you want to apologize? Jane was stunned. But she reacted quickly. She grabbed Charlie's wrist. It seems that Amy is really angry. Charlie, please say something for me. Charlie said coldly, is she a child? Does she need someone to coax her? Charlie, don't be like this. Didn't you promise me that you would have a good talk with Amy? Amy. I interrupted her, Ms. Jane, I'm very curious, you always call me Amy, are we familiar with each other? Jane blanched. Charlie chuckled, Amy, where are your manners? I'm a little annoyed. If I remember correctly, the purpose of today is to get the marriage certificate. So Charlie, are you stalling for time? Charlie's face darkened. Stubborn. We entered the Civil Affairs Bureau one after the other. After completing the divorce registration, the staff reminded us to come back 1 month to get the certificate. When we came out of the Civil Affairs Bureau, Charlie asked me, when are you going to collect your things? I looked at him in surprise. Didn't you notice? What did you find? There is no longer anything of mine in that house. Actually, it's understandable that Charlie didn't notice it. In the 2nd year of our marriage, he suggested sleeping in separate rooms. He said, even couples need their own independent space so that the relationship can last. I really trusted him at that time. Even though I would have preferred to share the bed with him, I said yes. From then on, even if we had sex every week, he would get up and leave after we were done. I pulled him aside a few times and asked him in a coquettish way if he could accompany me. He always looks at me as if I were a naughty child. Amy, we must do what we say and not go back on our word. Later one day, his friends came to his house to play. Accidentally caught Charlie sleeping in the guest room. He teased Charlie, asking if I had driven him over there. Charlie said, I was the one who suggested sleeping in separate rooms. Why? She's so clingy, it's annoying. I wasn't surprised that my mother came to my door. I told her the address of the new house. It's not because of the deep mother-daughter love, it's just that I understand her. If she can't find where I live, she'll come to my company. If the company couldn't find me, she would go to Charlie. The person I least want her to bother with is Charlie. When I was ill, Charlie analyzed my mother with me. Analyzed the motivations behind her behavior and the real purpose behind it. My mom is invisible in front of Charlie. Charlie could see through her self-righteous cleverness at a glance. And the half-smile that Charlie gave me after he saw through me made me feel uncomfortable. Charlie wants to divorce you? Did you do something to make him angry? Why are you so annoying? And you still post on Moments with a smug face? Aren't you ashamed? I've already told you to have a baby quickly. You're almost 30. You don't even have a child, how can you be so useless? Why do I have such a miserable life? Whenever I go out, people say that I am sick and can't have children. Can't you stand up for me? I don't have enough to eat or sleep well every day, and I don't even have the mood to play cards. I don't care. Go and have a good talk with Charlie. If you dare to divorce him, I will not acknowledge you as my daughter. I have heard these same old rhetoric countless times, and it no longer stirs up negative emotions in me. But I still couldn't help asking her, if you don't care, why should we get divorced? Why? Why? You can't even keep your own man, and you still have the nerve to ask why? Amy, let me tell you, if you dare to get a divorce, don't call me mom anymore. I followed suit, okay, auntie. My mother was stunned for a few seconds, then screamed, Amy. She looked like she was having a heart attack because of me. You just can't stand seeing me doing well, right? You just want to piss me off to death, right? How have I ever let you down? I raised you with great difficulty, and this is how you repay me? You are trying to kill me. I looked at the hysterical, raging woman in front of me. In fact, she doesn't have a complete outlook on life. She didn't know what to do and what not to do. She is now extremely chaste, and it seems like divorce would be against the laws of heaven. But it was also her who, when my boss wanted to take advantage of me, asked for $50,000. That was the summer job she found for me. A real estate development company. The CEO was my father's high school classmate. She asked me to go over and learn finance from others. I went. And the man I could call uncle trapped me in his car after getting drunk. He said that as long as I was willing, I could go and get a room right away and he would give me $5,000 a month. I was terrified. I told my mother about this, trembling. She was silent for a long time. $5,000 is too little. Tell him $50,000. If he raises the price to $50,000, you should agree. I was numb at that moment. I resigned numbly and went to school numbly. But she wouldn't let me go. She forced me to go back to that company, saying that if I didn't hand over things clearly, how would she face that person in the future? The one who wanted to take advantage of me. It was at that time that I became Charlie's patient due to severe depression. I took a kitchen knife from the kitchen and threw it in front of my mother. She shrank her neck and fell silent for a moment. "What are you going to do?" I said, "It's up to you, you can commit suicide or chop me up, whatever makes you happy, but I'm set to divorce you." Deathly silence. My mother looked at me with a hint of fear. "Oh, it's so ugly to use a knife." I dragged her to the window. "How about I jump with you? Since you don't want to live anyway, I'll give you a life." My mother fled in panic. When she reached the door, she said viciously, "If you want to die, die by yourself, don't drag me into it." Finally, the world is quiet. I just lay down on the floor. My mind was empty and I fell asleep just like that. I was woken up by Charlie's phone call. He asked me, "What should I do with the bags and jewelry in your display cabinet?" It took me a while to realize what he was saying. "These were all gifts from you, now they are returned to their original owners." Charlie said coldly, "There is no reason for me to take back what I gave away. Then just throw it away." After saying that, I hung up the phone. I wanted to block Charlie. But when I thought about the need to contact each other when getting the divorce certificate, I gave up. I think, with Charlie's personality, once he hits a wall with me, he won't take the initiative again. But what I didn't expect was that on the fourth day, he called me again. At that time, I was fulfilling my promise to treat Kevin to a meal. Kevin looks like a very aloof person, but when you get to know him, you will find that he is quite gentle. His gentleness is different from Charlie's gentleness. Charlie appears gentle on the outside, but he is cold inside. Kevin, on the other hand, has a kind of heaviness that comes from the accumulation of time. I expressed my gratitude to him. He asked how my recovery was going. Then we talked about each other's work. He was a little surprised to hear that I was now working in a tax firm. I smiled and said, "I passed the CPA exam 2 years ago and then changed my job." Kevin nodded, "Very cool." He also said, "Charlie is short-sighted." I lowered my eyes. I guess he still doesn't know that I changed jobs. In Charlie's eyes, I have always been useless. Just like I told him at the beginning, I wanted to take the CPA exam. His response was, "Don't waste time on things that are beyond your ability." Kevin is not a gossipy person, so the topic was quickly exposed. We chatted a little more and ended our dinner. As we were walking out of the restaurant, Charlie called. He asked me, "Where is the shower gel at home?" I remained silent. Suddenly Jane's voice was heard from inside. "Forget it, why did you really call Amy? What if she misunderstood? I won't wash it anymore." I chuckled, "The bottom shelf of the locker has shower gel, and the bathrobe is on the top. Have fun." Etc. Charlie's voice was urgent. "Don't let your imagination run wild." Jane and I were having dinner nearby and the waiter accidentally spilled soup on her. I want to say, you don't have to explain to me. I missed a step and luckily Kevin caught me. He said, "Be careful." Charlie was silent. After a few seconds, he growled, "Who are you with?" I frowned in disinterest. "We are divorced. We have nothing to do with each other anymore." Kevin said, "If you need, I can go and explain to Charlie." I looked at him, "Don't you believe that I really want to divorce him?" Kevin looked at me for a long time. Finally he said, "I believe it." I curled the corners of my mouth, "Thank you." I thought I had made myself clear enough. Charlie started bombarding me with calls. Even found my house. When Kevin dropped me off at the gate of the community, Charlie rushed out of the car. He raised his fist and punched Kevin in the face. "I treat you as a brother, and you seduced my wife?" Kevin was hit hard. Charlie wanted to take more action, but was restrained by Kevin. He said, "Enough." I rushed over and pushed Charlie away. "What's wrong with you?" Charlie looked at me in disbelief. "Are you protecting him?" I gritted my teeth, "You are sick." Jane came late. She held Charlie's hand and looked at me disapprovingly. "Amy, you are being willful. Even if you are angry. We shouldn't sow discord between Charlie and Kevin." Kevin smiled coldly. "Kevin? Do I know you well?" Jane's face turned pale. "Kevin, I know you don't like me. If you know I don't like you, don't talk." "Enough." Charlie always subconsciously defends Jane. He stepped forward and stood in front of Jane, looking at Kevin coldly. "When did you start?" I let out a breath of foul air in agony. "Charlie, just because you are dirty, you see everything as dirty." Jane interrupted, "But you got out of Kevin's passenger seat." Isn't the passenger seat only for girlfriends? I tilted my head to look at her. So you knew. Jane looked aggrieved. Me, I'm carsick. Listen to this, the officials are allowed to set fires, but the common people are not allowed to light lamps. Everyone could see that she was being unreasonable and making specious arguments, except Charlie, who was blind. I looked at Charlie tiredly. What on earth do you want to do? Why can't you just let me go? Do I deserve to be tortured by you? Charlie looked confused. Torture? You tortured me? I said expressionlessly, how did you know I live here? Ask my mom. You know my mother better than I do. You know very well that as long as you take the initiative to contact her, she will feel that we still have hope. She would come and bother me, over and over again. But you don't care, because how to deal with the relationship between me and my mother is my own business and has nothing to do with you. This is what Charlie told me himself. That's your mother. You have to learn to handle your relationship with her on your own instead of asking me every time. Otherwise, what is the point of my treating you for so long? But what about her? I raised my hand and pointed at Jane. You can help her with everything. You taught her how to get along with her friends and family. Why is that? Because to you, Charlie, Jane deserves to be loved by the whole world, but I, Amy, deserve to have to bear everything on my own. I've taken it. Charlie, you've taught me to take on the world on my own, so I don't need you anymore. Because of Charlie and Jane, Kevin was brought home by me for some unknown reason. But he didn't go in. He just said to me at the door, have a good rest, good night. I feel a little sorry for him. But I was too tired, both physically and mentally, and I didn't even have the strength to open my mouth. In the end, I could only nod and watch him leave. Charlie wants to talk to me. I agree. We met again in his studio. I asked for it. I wish I could have been more rational in my conversation with him. Charlie still looked superior. He said, I was wrong this time. I shouldn't have left you to find Jane. But Jane's situation was too urgent at the time, and I was afraid she would become depressed. It's a life, I can't just sit back and do nothing. She is my patient, you should understand. But I promise you, I will handle my relationship with her well. This statement is very Charlie. Give a slap and a candy. I thought about it. About half a year ago, Jane rear-ended someone and called you. You stayed up all night the night before, but you still rushed over when you received Jane's call. Afterwards you explained to me that Jane had no choice and she had no one to contact except you. Charlie frowned, what do you want to say? I want to ask you, if it was me who rear-ended someone, would you go? Of course Charlie is stuck. He should also remember what happened a month ago. Because the coolant pipe was old and broke, the car exploded halfway. That day, my car was sent for maintenance and I was driving his car, so naturally I wanted to ask him how to deal with it. He said, if you are attacked, call the police, if you are sick, call 120, if your car has problems, contact a repair shop. Amy, this is common sense. Charlie took off his glasses and pinched the bridge of his nose in annoyance. Amy, please be reasonable. The reason I said that day was because we had an argument the night before. I nodded, yes, we had a fight. Therefore, as long as I don't admit my mistakes and don't bow my head, you must punish me by all means. Shouldn't you admit your mistakes when you do something wrong? I stood up suddenly. The worst thing I have ever done in my life is marrying you. Charlie grabbed me and said, what do you want? I looked at him coldly, I want you not to regret it when 1 month is up. The most daring thing I've ever done in my life was to pursue Charlie. He helped me when I was most helpless. To the point that I felt I couldn't live without him. That was the first time I experienced what it meant to lose interest in food and tea. I became visibly haggard when I couldn't see Charlie. I don't know what's wrong with me. I just knew I wanted to be with him. At that time, I was indeed in love. I am clingy, jealous and suspicious. These are all things Charlie doesn't like. So he broke me down bit by bit and then rebuilt me. Time passed quickly when Charlie stopped contacting me. I went on 2 business trips. When I came back, the security guard told me that my mother had looked for me 3 times, but was stopped each time. Jane got my phone number from somewhere. She sent me a message accusing me, because of you, Charlie and Kevin had a complete falling out. Are you satisfied now? I don't want to bother with people who don't know what I am talking about. But I called Kevin anyway. I can explain it to Charlie if you need. Kevin didn't answer but asked, do you need it? Unnecessary. I don't need it either. I was silent. Kevin said, are you back from your business trip? How do you know? He said, I went to your office to look for you. Anything wrong? The finance officer of a subsidiary company is suddenly leaving and they can't find a suitable one for now. They want to ask if you would like to do the accounting. I said, I'm quite expensive. Kevin chuckled, if I try hard, I should be able to afford it. I also smiled and said, okay, I will come to talk to you in detail tomorrow. Good. After hanging up the phone, I thought I must have been wrong. It was a pleasure talking to Kevin. That branch doesn't have much business, so it's more cost-effective to outsource the accounting. We signed the contract after agreeing on the price. Kevin raised his wrist to check the time. I have a meeting next, so I won't keep you here. I breathed a sigh of relief. It seems that I was indeed wrong. Okay, you're busy. Charlie found me again on the 12th day. He looked a little depressed. He said, you changed jobs and you didn't even tell me. I frowned. What exactly are you going to do? Charlie looked at me, do you really want a divorce? What else? Why? Lily often said that in the relationship between Charlie and me, although he was 6 years older than me, I was the one who spoiled him. I satisfy whatever Charlie wants. I do everything Charlie asks me to do. So he became unscrupulous and at the same time lost the ability to reflect. For the last time, let's talk. This time I spoke up. I said to Charlie, I told you. I told you this when I was taking the CPA exam, but you admitted that I wouldn't pass it. I told you this when I changed jobs, but you didn't believe me and thought I was dreaming. Including buying a house, I didn't hide anything from you. I started decorating my new house last year, and I started moving things 2 months ago, all right under your nose. Why don't you ask yourself why you can't see or hear? Charlie was confused. But you were obviously not like this before. I smiled sarcastically. Thanks to you. My mother was not a good life coach. She never told me what to do or what not to do. She never taught me about propriety, righteousness, and shame. I figured all of that out by myself through trial and error. So my 3 views were formed very late. When I first got together with Charlie. He always shook his head at me in disappointment. And sigh, how come you don't even know these? How did your family teach you? If I heard such words now, I would definitely fight back calmly. But I used to feel really ashamed and thought I was wrong. You have taught me many things and always held me to the standards of a saint. I cannot be weak, I cannot have negative emotions, and I cannot ask you for help. Every word that comes out of my mouth must be positive. I can't say bad things about others, I can't complain about my dissatisfaction with my job. I cannot live without common sense, and I cannot be content with pleasure. You always blame me, and you break my self-esteem into pieces. Charlie, you know, I once thought about committing suicide because it was too painful. I even prayed to Buddha. I drew a stick, but I forgot what it said. I have forgotten what the interpreter said. All I remember is that I cried and cried, as if I had shed all the tears I had in my lifetime. Charlie's face turned pale, his lips trembled, and he said in a low voice, you are my wife, I just hope that you can become better. Charlie, you are a psychologist. You might as well use your professional knowledge to think about whether everything you have done to me can be considered PUA. I raised my hand to stop him. Think about it carefully first. Charlie once shattered my self-esteem bit by bit. I picked them up piece by piece myself. Then I patched it up and became who I am today. On the 18th day, Charlie showed up downstairs of my house. He called me. I was wrong, I will change, will you forgive me? Jane and I will no longer have any contact with each other, and I will no longer do things that you don't like. How can you forgive me? Then I'll give you my life as compensation, okay? He brought mangoes, a whole box. He swallowed it wolfishly. His lips and cheeks began to become red and swollen, and a rash was visible on his exposed arms. He didn't stop. 1, 2, 3. He was already having difficulty breathing when the ambulance arrived. I didn't show up until he was dragged into the ambulance. The light of expectation in his eyes slowly dimmed. He closed his eyes and fainted. The first person who approached me about this matter was Jane. The jealousy in her eyes could barely be concealed. Why? He obviously still loves me, and that is obviously proof of his love for me, and you are obviously going to get divorced. Amy, what did you do? I looked at Jane. Actually, I have always hated you, but I never stopped you from contacting Charlie. Do you know why? I asked myself and answered myself, because your appearance saved me. Because of Jane's appearance, and because of Charlie's lost look when he looked at Jane. I suddenly realized that Charlie is also an ordinary person. He is not the God I worship on the altar. He was even a little dirty. The second person to come to me was my mother. She didn't understand. Charlie has already done this, what else do you want? You've been taking the money for long enough, and now I've given you a way out, why are you still not stepping down? I don't understand either. Charlie has always wanted me to cut off contact with you and asked me to stop supporting you, and you still want me to be with him? My mother's face changed and she turned and ran away. The third person who came to see me was Kevin. I thought it was for Charlie too. Finally he said, on a business trip? We rushed to the branch office overnight, handed over our work to the finance department who was about to go abroad, and reviewed the accounts in hand. Due to time constraints, I had to stay there. Kevin said mysteriously that he would take me out to play. After many twists and turns, we arrived at a group of ancient buildings. I thought this was some kind of ancient town tour. Then Kevin told me that this was a street full of bars. Here. Any business? Kevin sighed, if I had heard you say this earlier, I wouldn't have voted. He lamented that he had listened to the advice of his bad friends, and ended up losing money in business. He didn't make any money, but he did improve his bartending skills. I sat at the bar and watched him operate smoothly. The only 2 customers in the bar came over and asked him to make them a drink as well. Kevin smiled and pushed the glass in front of me. Sorry, it's for special use. Kevin became my personal bartender that night. I drank quite a bit, a little tipsy but not drunk. The music in the bar was just right, the temperature was just right, and even the breeze blowing in through the half-open window was just right. I felt so comfortable that I felt a little dizzy. Kevin asked me, are you happy? I nodded, happy. Charlie said that as long as I went to the hospital to see him once, he would not regret the divorce. I went. When he saw me, he smiled, but it was an ugly smile. So these days, you didn't block me, were willing to see me, and talk to me, just because you were afraid that I would regret it, right? I nodded. He asked again, do you hate me very much? I answered honestly. Hated. There was a time when I hated Charlie very much. I hate meeting him and I hate loving him. But later, as I passed the CPA exam and changed jobs, I gradually felt relieved. I told Charlie, I know myself, and if I had to do it all over again, I would definitely make the same choice. 20-year-old Amy needs Charlie, either you, Charlie, or some other Charlie. Would I be better off with other people? No. I was really bad at that time because I attached myself to other people. But fortunately you pushed me away. Although the process was painful, fortunately the result was what I wanted. Charlie, I don't hate you anymore. It's not that you are not hateful, but I don't want to dwell on the past. But I also don't forgive you. Now, I just want to leave. Charlie does what he says. He has no regrets. We got the divorce certificate smoothly. He asked me, can we still be friends in the future? I laughed, you are a psychologist, what do you think? I always remember what Charlie once said, the past cannot be changed, but the future has infinite possibilities. People always need to grow. It's okay to stumble and it's okay to get bruised and battered. Don't look back, keep going. After the divorce, I decisively blocked and deleted Charlie. The only person related to him that I kept was Kevin. 4 months after the divorce, Kevin told me that Charlie had been reported. The reason for the report was the ambiguous relationship with the patient. Whistleblower, Jane. Because the reporting materials were false, Charlie did not suffer any impact. But Jane didn't give up. She immediately used her ultimate move, saying that Charlie seduced her while treating her. Her chat history with Charlie. A photo of them hugging each other. And a video of them kissing during a half-off sale for couples at a store. Kevin didn't seem to expect such detailed content in the news. He was trying to turn off his phone in a panic, and I said calmly, I know everything. He was silent. I smiled bitterly, are you asking why I knew everything but didn't leave him immediately? I didn't. I interrupted him, I was removing the shackles from my body at that time. If I wanted to escape, I had to first unlock the chains that bound my limbs. But I'm useless. I can't find my keys. So I had to break my limbs. The sudden silence around me was actually quite embarrassing. Just as I was thinking about saying something to break the silence, Kevin patted my shoulder. You are already very good. I worked for Kevin for a year until he found the right finances again. We visited the branch office once a month during this year. He would mix me a drink on that day every month. He paid me well. In return, I also treated him to meals many times. Somehow, we became friends. Lily asked if he wanted to pursue me. I shook my head, probably not. So do you like him? I was a little confused, I haven't thought about it, I don't like it. Lily shook her head, I advise you not to set your own expectations. Charlie was fired because of Jane's report. With a blemish on his resume, it will be difficult for him to find a good job. But even at this point, he refused to be with Jane. Jane, who returned empty-handed, finally gave up. I heard that Charlie started a business, but he wasn't doing very well. My best friend asked me if I was happy. I nodded, very happy. I give my mother alimony every month, but I rarely see her. She said I was narrow-minded and still holding a grudge. I just listened and it passed. I will still provide for her in her old age. But I took back all my feelings for her, whether love or hate. This state makes me very comfortable. My birthday is at the end of the year. Because I don't have many friends and I've reached my age, I don't have any expectations for my birthday. But Kevin treated me to dinner. He celebrated my birthday. There are my favorite dishes and cakes on the table. He gave me 2 gifts. One wished me a happy birthday. One wanted me to be his girlfriend. I promised to be happy and also promised to be his girlfriend. Lily was shocked. That's it? You don't even try to pursue her? I smiled. I like being with him. The love between adults has our tacit understanding. It does not need to be grand or passionate, nor does it require vows of eternal love. As long as it fits, that's it. But I still couldn't help but ask Kevin, when did you start to like me? I'm not so conceited as to think that he has been secretly in love with me for years. But I always feel that he has been nice to me since a very early time. Kevin thought about it and said, I didn't have a deep impression of you at first. I just think of you as Charlie's little wife, small in stature, young in age, not talkative, but very well behaved. Until one time when I accompanied my mother to burn incense, Kevin was impatient to do such things. While his mother went to listen to sutra chanting, he was wandering around bored. Then I met Amy. Amy burst into tears. Kevin's first reaction was to avoid the situation. No one would want to be seen in such a state by someone they know. But he didn't leave in the end. Because Amy cried so sadly. He sobbed like that and curled up like that, as if his muscles and bones were being pulled out. Kevin took a photo and wanted to send it to Charlie to process it. But in the end it wasn't sent. That's Charlie's wife. If she could get comfort from Charlie, would she run to the temple to cry? Kevin thought, forget it, don't do anything unnecessary. But he did it in the end. He bought a pack of paper and handed it to Amy. But he was short of words, and in the end all he could say were 3 words, stop crying. Amy didn't remember who handed her the paper. But Kevin engraved the despair in her eyes firmly in his heart. Kevin didn't want to do anything at first. He is a non-marriageist. He doesn't want to get married or fall in love, it's troublesome. What's more, she was my friend's wife. But every time they get together, he always pays a little more attention to her. I want to see if she is still so sad. I also wondered if I could do something to make her less sad. So in KTV, he would pretend to accidentally instruct the waiter to put the fruit plate on her side. At the dining table, when the vermicelli pot she liked was about to be turned away, he would raise his hand and press the turntable. But there are not many such opportunities. Kevin thought, it doesn't matter, at least I'm here, let her be happy. None of this means anything. He also brings food to the stray cats downstairs. There is no purpose, just something that happens. Until they started getting divorced. When Charlie misunderstood them, he didn't explain. First, he became increasingly disgusted with some of Charlie's behaviors in the past 2 years. Second, he just wanted to express his stance. This girl was quite pitiful and he supported her. He never thought about being with Amy. He is a non-marriageist. Until his friends exposed him, are you playing a new kind of secret crush? He has a crush on Amy. He has a crush on Amy. It took Kevin 2 days to realize the reality. He gasped, I'm kind of thinking about getting married, what's going on? Kevin and Amy got married in the 2nd year of their relationship. Charlie is here too. Was stopped outside by Kevin. Goodbye. Don't make her unhappy on your big day. Charlie scolded Kevin for being hypocritical, saying that he had been planning this for a long time, that he had bad intentions, and that they had been hooking up for a long time. Kevin sighed, if I wasn't afraid that the dress would get wrinkled, I really would want to beat you up. Halfway through the walk, he turned back and said to Charlie, really not, don't insult her. It's as if she had an affair during marriage. That won't work. Amy is innocent. Amy was the one being bullied. After marriage, Kevin and Amy have been living in their own world. Kevin doesn't want children. After deciding not to get married, he finds that he wants to be a dink. His mother said he does whatever he wants. But don't force him. After all, it's a blessing that he's willing to get married. His mother thought, My daughter-in-law is 6 years younger than him, so she should be able to see him off to the end of his life. But Kevin was actually nervous. He didn't want to hide it from Amy, but he was also afraid that she would not accept it. After hearing this, Amy said, "That's just right. I don't want to have a baby either." In fact, Amy was also hesitating about how to tell Kevin. "We were at a party with friends and we left early just to take me to the hospital. But she really doesn't have the confidence to be a good mother. Her first half of life was so miserable. I am lucky to be able to heal myself in the second half of my life. The proposition of life is too heavy. If she cannot give a satisfactory answer, she would rather not answer it." But fortunately, the two people reached a consensus. The only one who complained about this was Lily. Do you believe him? He used to be a non-marriage advocate. What will you do if he wants a child again one day? Men can give birth at any time. Amy is very calm about this. You're focusing on the wrong thing. The proposition is that I don't want to have a baby, and he doesn't want to have one either, so we agree and get married. Whether he wants to have a baby is his will, and not wanting to have a baby is my position. If we can agree, we'll be together, and if we can't, we'll separate. It's that simple. But isn't it sad? Amy looked up from her report. Are you not starting because you are afraid of getting hurt and don't want to be sad? I can't live my whole life in fear. Kevin was very happy to hear these words. That little girl who was crying loudly, that little girl who was so sad, seemed to have grown up. No, she's growing. No one can defeat her.